So Delilah, you saw my note about Rob.
Did
you see that? And yeah, okay. And also Christina's picking up her dog from surgery, and they are over an hour late in giving the dog back to her. So she's going to join as soon as she can.
Oh, poor thing.
I know. So a couple little things like that happening this morning. So I will just double check how we are here. Let me see.
Delilah.
Deb. Oh, yeah.
This is Phil. Phil, how are you this morning?
All right. How about
Good.
you?
Good. Well, I guess it just turned afternoon, so good afternoon. And I cleared it with Ann earlier. We may be having our new, I keep calling her an intern, graduate assistant from USM joining us this morning. She just started with us at Westbrook this week, and one of her roles is going to be working on some website things. So I've been invited her to this event and wrap up today. So if you see a new face, that's who it is from Westbrook, Melissa.
Hey, Westbrook.
Hi, Amanda.
I really love your website.
Thanks, Amanda. We've been
Absolutely
working on it for a couple of years now and kind of tooled it after a suggestion that Ed McMahon had made a couple of years ago, and it just took a while to get it going, but they're excited about that, and it's not even near completion yet. We just added a blog to it a couple of days ago, and we still got a lot of plans for it. So thank you so much. I appreciate that feedback.
Beautiful.
So Delilah, we have everybody coming because of the two kind of emergency situations, dog surgery and mayor meeting, that have taken Rob and Christina from us. Christina will be joining as soon as she can. So we have who's supposed to be here, I think.
Great.
Yeah. So you want to start or you want me to start?
Well, I think we should start with congratulations to
That's
that beautiful,
right. 3 cheers.
beautiful baby, Zach.
Zach, what do you want to say?
Thank you.
Are you tired?
He is sleeping. Sleep, so we're pretty lucky.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a fun little picture.
Yeah.
What's his middle name?
Horton, which is my wife's last name.
Aw.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah.
All right. Well, couldn't not put up the picture. I hope you're okay. I won't put it out publicly, but just among
don't sell it unless I get royalties.
But just our family, our Main Street family welcomes him.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is the first thing. And then a quick hello to all of you. And we, just for those of you that haven't met Phil Spiller, he's the president of Discover Downtown Westbrook, and he is here representing Westbrook with you guys this morning. I think many of you have met him. And let's see. Ready to go, Delilah?
Ready when you are.
Okay. So here's our agenda for this morning or this afternoon. We are excited to talk about what's been going on over the last year with this project, and really, get together as a team on this project, because this is really an amazing project. It takes all of us, and we're glad that you're here. And like I said, Christina's dealing with a dog emergency, but she's going to be joining us. And Rob has a meeting with the mayor unexpectedly. So we're recording it for them, and they'll join as soon as they can. So the agenda was developed based on the one-on-one phone calls that Delilah and I had with the group. These were the items that all the things we're going to talk about that made the most sense based on those calls. So how does this look for everybody? Any questions? Feel free to chime in. It's a small enough group.
And Phil here. I've got a quick question for you, and it's probably very easy to answer. In our files, I don't know if it's something that you had written up or Abigail had here at Westbrook, or am I saying his name right, Thierin? Terry.
Terry. Yep.
Just a summary from last year's
Yep.
retool. Is that something that will be put out from today's?
Yeah.
Is somebody doing that, or did Abigail do that on our end? Because if
No, that's
Abigail did it-
probably the summary that Delilah and I did last year for last year's discussion.
Okay.
And we will certainly put something in writing based on today's Zoom meeting as well.
Phil, does that have
great.
the budget on it?
I don't think that had a budget, Zach.
That would be helpful too, I think.
Okay.
This did not have a budget on it. Zach, it just had some general info, events can be found,
Yep.
and then a statistics section on this summary from last July in 2019.
Okay, great. So let's see, to summarize, I'm going to start out summarizing the calls that we had. So thank you for those of us that scheduled them with us. I did not have a call with Westbrook, just in full disclosure. They were in transition from Abigail leaving, so Westbrook has not participated in our data. And then we had two organizations that did not meet with us, unfortunately. But based on everybody else, let's see, let me just let Michael in. Half of the group is in full support of the project. Half of the group has clarifying questions, but they weren't against it. They just have questions. One person really wants it to be bigger and do more. So it was great to, talk to everybody. It seems that most of the group is not doing any specific marketing to cultural heritage visitors at this point. And most people found the $400 to $450 to be an expense that was reasonable, but they don't have marketing budgets in other areas. So they're not marketing to, most of you, the majority of you are not doing external marketing to visitors, drive markets, things like that. Let's see, Delilah, what other things do we have from our calls that I'm forgetting on my notes? Anything in particular?
And we had asked questions about the $450 and just how
right.
that relates to their overall marketing budgets that we each have. And I can comment on that unless you want to, Anne.
No, go ahead. You're on a roll.
Just that there's a few organizations that have large marketing budgets, and this $450 tended to feel like, a reasonable piece within that. And a surprising piece to Anne and I were that there are a couple of organizations that don't have marketing budgets, and that this was a substantial expense compared to what they spend on other marketing things. So that was good information. When I do events, for example, there'll be a one-page ad that I'm doing for one day, and that can cost $350. So when I compare spending $100 more than that for an entire year's worth of X, Y, and Z, it means something to me that might be different from somebody who doesn't ever do those $350 a page ads, for example.
Right.
So that was just helpful.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question too?
Yes.
I think it's helpful to frame this conversation because we're starting to talk about, and we're starting to get a little, even now in the first few sentences, like getting in the weeds on like marketing budgets and who's in, like some people doing things in other. It would be helpful if we're talking about marketing in terms of spend, can we talk, just reference whether or not you're talking about paid media, like very few organizations are doing paid drive market?
Yeah, we're talking about paid media, Dave, not earned media.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Other questions on the summary of our calls? It was really, 4 or 5 questions that we checked in on.
And I think it is being done, but you might have said it before I jumped on. Phil here from Westbrook again. I apologize for interrupting. I just got a note from our graduate assistant. She's not going to be able to make it. Is this being recorded?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. She indicated that she'd like to see it afterwards if possible.
Yep, that's
Okay.
fine. And Mike, I saw that you jumped on. Mike is on the leadership team at Discover Downtown Westbrook, and also runs a website development company. Correct, Mike?
Yeah, and I just want to jump in and just give my quick 2 cents on it. The $450 to me, having been in this field, absolute tremendous value. I went through and looked at all of so many businesses in Westbrook are getting links, restaurants. It's all very good for them. I think it's a drop in the bucket. And I think it's a great program, and I
think we should save this for discussion, though.
Yeah, we're going to get there, Mike. We actually, we're going to mention a Westbrook restaurant, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Just because if we start the discussion now, we may skip some of the other parts of it. So, thank you.
So any other summary information from you, Delilah, from the calls?
I wasn't quite sure how to say this, but I will say that 2 of the members of our team were not willing to meet, despite multiple entreaties to meet. So I feel like that's part of our team dynamic that we have to work out, that there's not communication completely as we're going into this meeting. And, you know, to me, communication is kind of a basic of a team. And so part of our dynamic as a team is we have to figure out, are we able to talk with each other enough to be a team? And I don't have any data on that right now, but perhaps by the time we get to discussion, that'll become clearer.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I feel like, you know, this is an amazing project and we're all a team. And I do feel like, you know, part of the foundation is a little broken. So I hope today we can answer questions and concerns and figure out how to move together collectively.
Yeah, I want to comment on that. I'm one of the people that didn't, and I had asked multiple times for a meeting. I don't think this ever came to a resolution last year. And then I think for me, it all stems around, I do have some questions about the value. I have some thoughts about it, but I have just some issue about the process. And I think it stems back to the conversation about increasing the number from $400 to $450. And it's not about the money. It's about the principle. And I think it goes back to what you're talking about, communication. And I don't, you know, I'm just going to say it right now. Delilah, you aren't paying anything. Hardin Biddeford isn't paying anything and isn't contributing financially. And so that's what it comes back to. And I just feel like side conversations are not a productive way to communicate. And so you've just summarized based on your observation. And I think if we're going to work as a team, then the conversation needs to be had as an entire team and not Delilah with each person individually. So, you know, I've heard concerns from people individually. And I think because I've been vocal about the process last year, I think people have felt comfortable reaching out. And so I'm just going to leave it there. I think it does go both ways. And those are some of my concerns about the project.
If you can point to us when you requested a meeting about discussing about this, I would love to see it, because literally as I reached out to you those 3 times, Zach, I had no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah, I can tell you the date. It was back in over a month and a half ago. And then it was back in December.
A month and a half
ago? It was a rush meeting in Gardner after a educational session or whatever. We didn't come to a resolution, and then the next thing, it just got carried forward. There was no resolution last year in terms of what we were paying or how we were paying or what the project was going to look like moving forward. There was assumptions, and I think Phil was the one from Westbrook originally had sent just something asking for more information, and I said, yeah, I really think we need to have a conversation about what this looks like in the future. I personally, I have no issue with Thierry or what he's producing. Thierry, in full disclosure, just did our website. I'm really happy with him. I do think he needs some direction and some guidance for it to be really valuable. And I think there are a lot of ways to leverage it, but just assuming that continuing to run it the way it is and increasing $50 and assume that it's working for everybody and saying that it's a good value because it's about what you're paying for other marketing doesn't mean that it's a value to everyone. And that's the conversation that we need to have as a group and not individuals, and just continue to push it forward and have people pay.
So Anne is taking notes. Just so we can add this to the discussion section, would you say that your concern, you said, is with the process of deciding whether to continue, and that you felt that it did not come to consensus at the meeting a year ago, and that you believed it wasn't yet to consensus? And
I don't think we came to a consensus on agreeing to pay an increased fee.
okay.
We ran out of time in Gardner.
Yeah.
There was a follow-up phone call where we didn't come to a conclusion. We ran out of time. And I remember Gordon vividly talking about it, but on the follow-up phone call, vividly remember talking about him. I don't remember when it was. I could go back through and look, but there was no resolution.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to do one-on-one phone calls was so that we could make sure that we heard everyone and then could kind of build the discussion today to be really productive, Zach, and address the needs. So that was, it wasn't to have side conversations. It was actually to really understand in like a focused conversation what people's concerns were, so that we could bring them to the group. So just to be clear, that was our method. And, you know, I still believe that that made sense. I heard you say that direction and guidance is needed for Terry. That's great. I think that would be great to engage him in a little more of a strategic conversation, perhaps. The thing that I think is really important to understand is that, yes, Heart of Biddeford isn't paying, but I want you to know that, like, just in preparation for this meeting and making the phone calls, Delilah and I probably each spent 6 hours of time. So, you know, I think we did say this
And a
to
small
the group.
point of order too.
Yeah.
Heart of Biddeford has actually paid $900 this year because Belfast and Brunswick did not pay their $450. So I've paid double what the other Main Streets have.
Could
So
I make some comments as well?
sure, can I just finish my thought? So I do think that one of the things we were trying to tease out among the member organizations is, you know, whether they were able in their position to, for a year, help manage the project instead of payment. Like we did ask that either on one of the phone calls or a year ago in Gardner, and no one was willing to do that. So we did ask the group that because that's what it's going to take. I can't do it by myself. Delilah can't do it by her health. And that was the agreement we came to when Heart of Biddeford originally, you know, wrote the grant. It was like a way to make the project work. And I feel like projects like this need kind of creative ideas to administer them. So that's where that came from. Who was it that just asked to say something? I'm sorry, I can't see all the
It's
heads.
Deb.
Hi,
Deb from
Deb.
Brunswick.
Hello, Deb.
Hi. Well, I echo many of the sentiments that Zach has already expressed. I have vocalized my concerns about this entire project, given the fact that I have reached out repeatedly, as well as Patty, my marketing director, to Terry regarding the content of what he's putting on about Brunswick. And some of it was grossly outdated. We are a membership-based organization, so we would prefer, and we have plenty of examples of many businesses and activities that are involved with the BDA that are a good reflection of the community. And none of that got changed. So that was my, you know, a major concern, and that was never addressed. Personally, you know, like Zach mentioned, it's not the money. It's not the money at all. It's the principle of the thing that, you know, concerns were expressed, nothing was done. And if we, and I understand that I may be in a little bit of a different position than many other Main Street communities in terms of having someone on staff full-time who does marketing. And she would happily be able work with Terry to provide him with photos and descriptions, and she has sent that. She has sent information, and it's been ignored. And requests to get some stuff off of there because it's outdated. It doesn't make any sense. Fell on deaf ears. So that's my concern with it. And I recognize that this may be a great thing for many, and it can be a great thing for Brunswick too, as well as every other Main Street community. I don't have a problem with that. But I wasn't happy with the product.
I gotta step in and say that the two concerns brought up from Zach and Deb completely changed the agenda of this meeting. And I'm willing to have separate meetings with them first to figure out an agenda, but I do not have time to figure out which pieces of what you're talking about are things we can deal with today and which things we are not. I'm not willing to continue the meeting myself at this time. So I'm willing to meet with you to find out your agenda items, but I'm not willing to figure out what the agenda is while we're on the phone together. I'm ending the meeting for myself right now.
Well, Delilah, the fact that you paid, is Delilah still on the line? I will pay you back. I never expected Biddeford to pay for Brunswick. Never did. Okay. But I understand that Terry needs to get paid. Okay, but holding back on payment was it just seemed the obvious thing to do. If you're not happy with something, you don't pay for it.
Yeah. Well, I certainly would like to make sure that we're managing our contractor responsibly and making sure that he does what he said he would do and things like that. So I thought a number of those things had been done, Deb. But again, let's park that for a second and have a separate conversation about that. And we can do that with our contractor, and you maybe together we'll have a meeting with him to make sure we can make those changes. Okay.
Sure.
Great. So Christina, is your dog okay? She's driving. Okay. I'm going to keep going.
Yes, he's good.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling in a stressful time, and feel free to jump if you need to. So the original, to prepare for today's meeting, we did go back to review the original goals of the project, and the original goals really were to build the brand of, the term Main Street, the term downtown, connected to the national Main Street, which is like a recognizable term when you survey cultural heritage tourists. So it wasn't necessarily that we, all by ourselves, could increase traffic to your downtown, to a specific business, to a specific event. I mean, sure, we want that to come, but we're certainly not in a position to measure that at this point. So really it is about building that brand. And I think that's important for you guys to remember. So we have to look at, what is feasible to do in the budget that is really a total of, let's see, I think it's about $8,600, but as Phil and Zach have asked for, I can give you the exact numbers. That really does go to the membership in the Maine Tourism Association and then to Terry to do this work. Not much. So I think that it's important to think about the project as like, all right, we're building the brand. We have this really small budget. What is feasible to do in that budget? And what, methods and outputs and things do we, can we do in that budget? So there were a number of great takeaways so far this year that I'd like to share with you. If I can get my slides to move. And you should have seen them all. They've been shared with you. Oops. All right, there we go. So this is, let me find my little notes. Terry shared this with us because it surprisingly showed that August really was still pretty spectacular. And I think a lot of you have reported that anecdotally to me in your downtowns. So it's really marking both the number of visits, meaning you just go there, and visitors, meaning you move around the site. And you can see the red is August, and it is higher on both counts. And, you know, considering the pandemic, that's pretty good. So we're still dealing with good success there. Hold on. And then specifically during August, he also, I mean, obviously we have a lot more data. I'm just giving you a couple grounding pieces. So the number of times that pages were visited in August from Facebook, blogs, website, etc. And you can see, you know, whoops. Sorry, guys. There we go. You can see all sorts of specific your downtown pages, but then you can see like Bramble's gift shop in Belfast for whatever reason, Riley's Bakery, specific state lunch in Augusta, actually themselves had more visits. And this is really the most visited pages. This is a year of data so far, year to date, so January to September. And this does not include the downtown pages. So what Terry said is interesting. He feels at these numbers that you see don't even include the many other clicks from visitors to the listings, like Facebook pages or websites or links for Google Maps for directions. Like this is literally directly from MainStreetMaine.org to these locations. And he specifically said, if you look at Raging Bull Saloon, you know, he has, again, other layers of data that showed that, you know, there were 235 times that people went through MainStreetMaine.org ultimately to the Raging Bulls Facebook page. And then same with State Lunch, like 754 visitors went to their website. So he really feels like the MainStreetMaine.org is driving a lot of traffic to individual businesses in your downtowns, which is great. And feel free to chime in if you have questions. And obviously, I am not the data person, but I'm doing the best and I can. And if I don't have the answer, I'll find out. A lot of you have used this content. Zach, I saw on your website, you actually have like a little video of this, which is just great, of, you know, wear your masks with some music in the background. So he did some specific things during COVID to try to beef up traffic and engagement. This one makes me laugh because Christina, what we're looking at is the MainStreetMaine license plate that you were like, we should do that. So Christina wants us to actually get a statewide license plate for our Main Street programs. But he sent you these and I can send them to you again, if you would like to have this information. And then he did the eating one, the local eating one, which he had done last year and was very, really popular. So he did that one again. And, you know, he's boosting these posts. So he's using some of his money to actually pay for advertising of the program. And then he did some of those legacy businesses like Riley's. There might have been the one for Coburn Shoe in Belfast and a couple other legacy businesses as well. So, so these are the, you know, some of the results and, you know, I think why we're still feeling really optimistic about the project and building that Main Street brand. So it would be great if for Christina, you can't see, but we did put up a picture of Zach's new baby. Okay, So I thought it'd be great if we could just dive into a little bit of a discussion or answer some questions. And I'm going to continue to take some notes. And I would, I've gotten some already from our conversation already, but what other questions, thoughts, concerns do you guys have?
Can I make a quick comment just because I feel
Sure, Dave.
I feel like first, obviously, there's a lot of historical stuff going on that I'm not a part of. As you mentioned, Gordon maybe was involved in much of the conversations, and I've come in late to a party. But one thing it sounds like, and you used it to kind of frame the conversation and say, "Hey guys, remember this was about building awareness." There, and versus some of the other metrics that maybe people are thinking of. But I think one thing that is helpful, and again, I'm speaking professionally, right? It's like, when you have an awareness campaign, when there isn't a specific call to action, you need some way to show the intent journey, right? So I think maybe one of the things that are people feeling like, well, great, I'm glad we got those clicks, I'm glad there was awareness there, but what does it actually mean, and what does it do for that person's kind of engagement with our downtown, or whatever that means? There are really simple ways where we could document the intent change that happened through some of this, which I think might make people better understand what happened there. And those are simple things. And maybe that goes to what Zach and Deb are talking about. And I don't know, right? Because I wasn't a part of those conversations, but it sounds like if Terry's boosting things with his own money, great. But why is he boosting on certain posts? What is the logic behind that? Is there a method to that process that's showing, well, we think that these posts would drive the intent journey differently than others? And I think if there was communication around that strategy, that could help. But I do think, to your point, if it's about awareness, then it's hard, because it sounds like a lot of the feedback is about like more, there was a very strong call to action, which it sounds like was never the plan. So I guess I said a lot of things only to say it's clear why there's dissonance in this conversation, but and I'm sorry that Delilah dropped off, because it feels like this is solvable in a very short amount of time if we could just talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be clear, Terry's not using his own money. He's using the money that we're paying him, like his contract with us to do boosting.
All right, that even more so. It's like, and again, if I was going to have a say, I would say that there should be a high level strategy on when we're boosting, and people here should understand, because in my mind, I would think that money, like, there's the frequency needed on a boosted post. It's going to be rare that it would do what it needed to do, but that's one person's opinion. But if we collectively agreed on a strategy, then nobody would be complaining about boosted posts.
I totally agree. And that is the first note I made after Zach's comments, which is direction and guidance and a strategy for Terry, with us. So I'm in complete agreement.
Cool.
Other comments, questions, concerns?
And Phil here, is there a set, and I know Mike and I just kind of jumped into this very recently since Abigail's departure in the last 3 or 4 months. Was there ever a set schedule in the contract where a review process was, and this probably just speaks to Dave's point and everyone else's point, of review of this, instead of just, hey, some time goes by and let's all just make some phone calls and gather once a year?
Well, it is, I mean, I think that without a pandemic, I would say our directors are more physically together after Downtown Institutes and gathering in person. And it has been a long time since we've done that. But we do agree that this is, everybody receives monthly updates in writing from Terry. And then we meet as a team, once a year to focus on this. So that is the schedule, but of course it could be changed or updated if people felt that would be better.
Are we on that list? I don't remember receiving anything from Tiara. And again, we had a changeover with Abigail, and her emails are supposed to be coming to our...
So there's a couple ways. Terry probably does not have yours and Heather's email embedded into the Main Street director list like I do, Phil, because I just made that change in the last 6 weeks, right? So I have to get that to Terry. And then there is a closed Facebook group where there are posts. That's another way that Terry shares, like requesting information or sharing reports. So it's shared 2 ways, and I will certainly make sure that Westbrook is added.
Yeah, and if you could add Mike, because Heather really hasn't had a part in any conversation in this, but Mike is really our guy that's been making this happen.
Sure.
And you've got his email. If you could add him, if you want to
Yeah,
keep Heather
that's
on it,
totally
fine.
fine. You have to understand, Phil, that every organization has one point person. And so I kind of have multiple point persons for multiple projects for Westbrook. So this one fell through the cracks, and I will get you guys added to Terry's list.
And if it has to be one person, Ann, if we could make it Mike.
Yeah, that's
instead
fine.
of myself or Heather.
Yep, that's fine.
If that's okay with Mike.
Other comments, concerns? Amanda.
I don't
Hi.
I'm a people pleaser. We know this. So it's hard for me to be unpopular in my opinion. And it's so hard. Like my heart is beating. But like I came into this role a little over a year and a half ago, and I just kept things going that were going, and I don't make decisions on things that have been already established. I don't think that my executive board or myself would sign up for this project if it was new today. I do feel like I am just keeping the train going because I don't feel like I have the power to say no. And it's something for us to spend money on marketing for Bath and for Main Street Bath. We have about $2,000 a year that we spend on marketing, and it does need to be more. I realize that, but I think in what little we have, we wouldn't spend it on branding Main Street as a brand. We would spend it on promoting Bath through our channels that we choose. I also separately, and it's really hard, it's all really hard for me to say. And separately, in this year with COVID, it's just extremely hard. I mean, we haven't been able to raise the money that we normally would have. And I wish that there was a grant that could just cover it for this year, to just put a Band-Aid on it and be like, let's wait until, next year to put our own resources that are really far and few between. I mean, in the springtime, I didn't know if I'd have a job past September.
Right.
So there's a lot of passion around this topic, and I realize how sensitive it is. And whether I believe in it or not, I want to acknowledge the fact that people are putting time and energy into it. I see what you and Delilah are doing, and I applaud that. Whether it's something that Bath wants to do or not, I still want to give you the credit for what you've done. It's just, I don't know what to do with my unpopular opinion.
Well, I guess I feel like I'd challenge you only on the part about marketing, to the brand and the awareness of Main Street than, specifically to Bath, because I feel like it is really great to think that the Office of Tourism, I mean, I don't have a report for you on media placement today, but last year we had a whole bunch of articles that were on downtowns and on main streets because of this project. And the Office of Tourism has done a lot of work on Come to Maine for downtowns and main streets. And maybe I can't prove it in metrics to you, but that helps Bath, Amanda. There's no way it doesn't. So I actually would debate you on that issue. And there are people that could better speak about the value of branding and awareness building, like Dave or Michael, who are experts in these fields, and Christina even. So I will say that. And yes, it is a brutally hard year. It is a brutally hard year right now. And I would say 2021 is going to be even harder, having to predict. And the only other thing that I want to remind you guys of, and I remember years ago talking to Christina about her Brew Fest, and all agreeing that to take on a project of that scale, it takes 3 or 4 years for an event like that to break even and really put some feet in the ground. And I feel that way with this project. This is a young project. I mean, it would be a shame to abandon ship when, we have things to work out. I'm not saying we're all great. I've got all sorts of great notes, but I guess I feel we're still building here, people. this is only going to become better with time and more sophisticated. So, other comments or questions? Melissa.
I'll speak up. Gardner, I get a lot of value out of this from a Gardner standpoint. We are not on a lot of people's radar for a tourism destination. We're also a much smaller community, and our city right now doesn't have its act together for promoting or doing any type of marketing for our city. So it is an easy effort. I mean, no effort. I mean, it's an easy check for me to write because I know that work's getting done that's promoting my town and giving us added value of being part of like the cool club of, you know, the other towns that everybody goes to Belfast in the summer. You know, like Gardner has its own value, but it kind of like, it gives us more significance to be part of that.
Thanks. That's interesting perspective. That you don't think you're one of the cool kids all by yourself.
Well,
no,
we're not like a big label on a map.
No, I know. You're not like necessarily a tourism destination, yeah. You know, like a Belfast. Yeah, I hear you. Anybody?
So I appreciate hearing that, Melissa. And I think for me, that speaks, I think the elevated brand is really important. And I've seen a lot. I think the message around economic development through historic preservation is not spoken loud enough. And I think the economic development piece is lost. And so I think there's different audiences. And so I think it goes back to the strategic planners, strategic messaging. And Ann and I have had a couple of conversations about being left out of larger conversations happening at the state level. So while it's great that we're promoting a brand to tourists, I think there's also stakeholders within the state that need to hear the message. And I also think I've heard, and I think Christina and I talked about Senator Collins' visit to Skowhegan, and then the article in it that mentioned the chamber. And I constantly hear, you know, what's the difference between the chamber and the chambers? To the chamber's advantage, the chamber model has been in existence for 150 years. There are more chambers than Main Street organizations, a Chamber of Commerce. They're all similarly named. It ends in Chamber of Commerce. Whereas all 10 of us, there's a different naming iteration. And so I think to me, that has to be part of the process, is just the general awareness in the community or in the state to recognize the work that we're doing on so many things that are important to economic development, historic preservation, and tourism attraction. So I was glad to hear Christina mention the Maine state license plate. I think things like that are things that make it more of a household name. And again, I go back to the process. It's not personal for me. It just is clear to me that the process has not worked, and I have just seen that there is confusion or not complete buy-in on the process. And so that's where I am. I'm not opposed to paying it, but I'm not going to just pay it when it didn't come to a resolution. And I'm really sorry that Delilah got off the call. I think she should have stayed on for the conversation. And I guess that's where I'll leave it. I will say I'm happy to pay the money. I'm also happy to work on the project. I don't think it needs to just be one person. I think it can be a team. I think we can figure out how to best move that forward. But I think everybody should pay if they're getting a value. I think everybody should pay. And if somebody feels so strongly that the project is beneficial, then they would pay and chip in some time.
Great. I heard some great things that you said, Zach, but I think some sort of shared leadership and work process may be a more equitable way to do the work and to pay the fee. I love what you said about really thinking about this as an in-state effort as well as our out-of-state. Like, we can use it in that way, especially during the pandemic, right? Because we've been doing a lot of in-state marketing. Certainly the Office of Tourism had, and that kind of does broaden the work. So those were two great takeaways. I appreciate
And I
those
just want to say
comments.
one other thing. I don't know if
Mhm.
David's going to mention it. I think there's also an opportunity to look at a possible pivot, just like everybody has.
Yeah.
I was just reading a National Retail Association, the trends for the winter in terms of Black Friday and the holiday season. And I think there's an e-commerce component and a possible pivot. And I know David's done a lot of research on it. And so I'd like to see us all have a conversation about it. I think it goes back to Melissa's piece about, you know, there's definitely strength in numbers, and that's the value of being part of the Maine Downtown Center. And I think we just need to leverage it smarter when it comes to, you know, awareness. And I think e-commerce is a major piece of it.
And then I know Mike, go ahead, and then I'll follow up on what Zach.
Oh no, you go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead. I'll jump in after.
Okay, I was just gonna say I have done a lot of work on this, and as maybe some people on the call know, I met with the Bowie local team to talk about potentially getting them involved. My only reason why I hesitate to get too in the weeds on it is the project manager of this project is dropped off the call. So that makes me a little uneasy. Like, I don't want to have the conversation twice. However, I'll keep this brief. The biggest reason why we would want to pivot to the e-commerce side of it is, like, collectively, that's all the benefit, right? The fact that when we collectively come together to build brand awareness, certain people are going to benefit more. But if collectively we came together with a strong call to action driving towards those pages, we would be having a completely different conversation. And, you know, it really does need a narrowing before we can broaden, because as Zach said, like, we're talking to a lot of different audiences, but this is a very small amount of money to even make a movement on an
Absolutely.
on one audience, let alone multiple audiences.
Right.
So my suggestion, and then I'll stop talking, would be that we would strategically come together and get very, very focused to show success, so that way we can go broader and get more stakeholders involved. And there are people, I would say, outside of the people on this call, who could be coming to the table with money to support that effort, because everybody is trying to think through the same thing. We're not the only ones trying to think through how do we transform drive market awareness into e-commerce sales in Q4 and Q1 in the middle of a pandemic. And we could lead the way on that, though, collectively together. Separately, we are going to fail.
How many of you have Bowie local in your downtowns right now?
So there's all but two, according to Bowie local, but they are saying that they're Augusta. They're not in Gardner, but they're saying they're in Augusta. Like, they looked at it and they were like, there's only two communities where they're not currently represented.
Cool.
And the only reason they're not is because of what David said about trying to saturate a market, because that's the way it works. And then they move on to the next market.
Sorry, Michael, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was going to say that I echo Zach's and David's comments. Like, my thoughts on this are, I think it should be a yearly discussion that we regularly revisit. It's not so much the money for me, as you know, but this year will be tough. I think it's tough for all of us. I would say that for me, echoing Zach's sentiments there, it's more of a tweaking. Like, I don't need to add any more to your plate, Ann, but I'm wondering if, you know, perhaps, like, you know, when we write our checks, if it could be made out to Maine Development Foundation, if it could be made out to Maine Downtown Center, writing it directly to another Main Street program.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, and I appreciate all the work Delilah has done with it, but there's just a level of it seems to have become like an overly personal issue, you know, for her at some point. And since we are, you know, if this is going to be a team effort, it should be managed by a neutral party.
Yep. That's fair. That's an interesting, what is the word? Well, distinction. But anyway, that's a really interesting point. One of the roles that Heart of Biddeford played is they wrote the grant. in other words, the grant went out of Heart of Biddeford. And so they have served as the fiscal agent there. Bookkeeper has done the collecting the checks, the writing the checks, all that kind of stuff. And when you guys were applying, we consciously said, you know, we don't want to be the ones to apply. MDF didn't. And I have to kind of go back in my soft brain and remember why that was a distinction, because we have served for fiscal agents for you guys for projects, or you know, fiscal administrators for Kennebuck Valley Downtown Relief Fund. So I need to kind of go back and figure that out, and I need to ask whether we could play that role, because you're right, like in a way it makes perfect sense, Michael. So thank you for bringing that up.
Is it a money? Is it that the money goes that way, but is it also she acts as project manager on it, right? She's essentially the project manager between.
I would say we co-do it, but yes, she absolutely does serve that way.
Okay.
As you know, managing the fiscal piece as well as like the project piece. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just from a structural standpoint, I think what we're all the stakeholders on this call should have a say in the strategic direction, but I do think you want one project manager. You don't want multiple people project managing this. You know what I mean? There should be
no, but as Zach's saying, is there a division of labor, or you know, like I'm sitting here thinking of, you know, issues that everybody's caring about, and in my head I'm like, okay, you know, I could work with that person on this. I could get that person to meet with me to talk about a strategy. I mean, I think without bogging the process down and the work down in any way, I think there might be a way to do that. So I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Rob Biggs. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
So
can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, Christina.
I just want to put out there that I am a staff of 1 doing the work of 3 right now, which was already a pretty heavy push prior to losing staff. And there is no way in my mind that I'm able to put any more effort into MainStreetMaine than I already am, which is pretty much 0.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there. I will not be able to be part of any sort of project management of any sort.
Yeah.
I could probably put a time into a strategy call, but otherwise I just can't. And I apologize, but I just can't.
I think that's a fine comment. I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, all of you have ebbs and flows of things happening in your organizations and are going to have capacity at different times. And that is 100% fair. Is there anything else you want to share, Christina? No.
No, I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else want to share something?
I'm just curious what the appetite is for if this was to be more directed on, like, with stronger calls to action towards e-commerce, especially in the upcoming season. Like, is there an appetite for that? Like, I guess I get it. I'm kind of late to the party, but I'm trying to figure out, are people not on board with like this being a focus on brand awareness, or is it that people don't feel like collectively it makes sense and we should all be focused on our own kind of communities? I'm trying to get my mind around where the.
Well, how about just as a quick straw poll, how about a thumbs up if you have interest in like an e-commerce capability, just at this point? I know you don't all have all the information, but just a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. I have one, okay. So that was pretty unanimous. We can't see Christina's thumb. So there's definitely interest, Dave, in the answer to the quick straw poll. Okay. Mike, I'd love to just have you chime in with your professional hat on. This is different than your typical client, right? This is a collaborative group project working on this. It's not the same as building something with one client. You're building it with 10. Do you have any either experience with working with group projects in your field, or would you like to make any other comments? Because I know we pushed your comments off earlier.
If you're talking to me, I was.
I am talking to you.
I know there's another.
Not the other Mike.
Hello, Augusta. And I'm just jumping in. This is my first time on the call, and I find it very interesting. I think that, for me, I had expressed earlier, I did find some value. I think I love David's idea about e-com. Totally was not thinking in that direction, but I think that would be a tremendous value to Westbrook. But also maybe taking a step back and being like, what are the goals that everybody wants to get out of this? I think you can find value if goals are met. And I was just really excited to have all our restaurants represented with links going to them. I thought just that piece alone was good. So I like the base, but I agree that it's hard for some people to see the value. And I as a group, I would want everybody to be unanimous and like, this provides value.
You made a great point. You said, what are everybody's goals? And maybe that is something we need to revisit.
So I never would have thought e-com would be a goal, but now that I hear it, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But you bring
one
up
of the ways.
Oh,
sorry. One of the ways we got value in, just to add on to what Mike's saying, in our website retool over the last couple of months, and Amanda, I appreciate your comments on that and compliments. We said, we looked at this MainStreetMaine and said, hey, they've already done a lot of the work we'd like to have on our website. Let's utilize that as a value for us. So if you look on our new website, we actually took a lot of the work that Terry and Delilah did for us and kind of copied it right into our website. And we just wanted to make sure that the link is strong back and forth. So that's a good way that we found right out of the chute that we could get some good value on that. And that was, again, a lot of Mike's work. So that's one of the ways we did that. But there are some great ideas and discussions here today. I think this phone call today has been, and we are, again, coming late into the game, and I apologize for that, Ann, after Abigail's departure. But Mike, again, this is his baby. And we are ready and willing as to what the entire group wants to do here.
Yeah. I think Michael's point on the linking is important, though. That's kind of where my head's at, right? So if we can't get a unified effort, if the businesses that they're linking to don't have call to actions, then it's like, I can't build that momentum, right? To say like, oh, it's great that you link to that business, but if that business doesn't have any kind of like digital extension of their commerce experience, it's tough for me to then get buy-in. And again, I'm not struggling to get buy-in because this is a new project on my plate, but I would say that we can't collectively show that impact in a meaningful way, right? And that's the thing that we're going to be up against, is that if we're trying to fight the fact that everything is telling us that all the spending, right, is getting shifted away from our areas, that the reason why somebody would shop in our communities, especially when they're price sensitive, is because we can pull on those heartstrings. And that collectively, if we can pull on the heartstrings together, to Zach's point, we're going to be able to have a much bigger impact. Right. And that's the thing, is that any one of us individually in our communities are going to struggle to say, hey, I know consumer behavior has changed forever. And now you understand, even if you didn't before, that you can get stuff cheaper, faster, and easier online. But here's why you should shop in Rockland or in Belfast or any of these communities. Right. But as we truly try and aggregate this sense of community and commerce, it feels like that's where collectively we're more powerful. Part of what I'm hearing is that we're talking about building brand awareness, but to Zach's point and what others have said, is that if there's not a unified brand already, then that's why we're not able to show that impact. If our town, Belfast, feels very, very different than what's going on in Brunswick, then why are you spending effort to share that unified brand? But I agree with Ann. Every single time we do this work, it's clear that you need to spend at the top, and that it does rise all the ships. Like, that's every single time we've done DMO marketing, that is true. So we have to just figure out how to do that together. And e-commerce might be a way to do that, or it might be brand awareness. But I think as simple as saying, like, you could survey, you could poll, like, we could do different things to show how that's increasing that intent. That would solve a lot of this. But I feel like, like Michael said, like, it's great that all the restaurants are linked there. And if those restaurants also were selling like gift certificates and things like that, we could show how, because we know linking back to the MainStreetMaine.org is really valuable, but only if that business understands that and is building on that. And that's what we have to collectively do together.
Okay, great. So is there anybody who has felt like they have more to share? And before I summarize, because I don't think we need to have a 90-minute meeting. I think we get to go home early, but I do want to summarize before, and I want to make sure. And Rob, I know you came late, but I recorded this for you. You missed seeing the picture of Zach's new baby. Anybody who feels like they were not heard or has something additional to share? Okay. So, in conclusion, Deb, you and I are going to work on your specific issue. I think that the next step for me is to look at all the comments today and identify kind of a new version of this team project. And I don't have it totally clear in my head, but I feel like I have awesome comments from all of you that are really important to moving forward together. And, you know, I'm going to work on this and get back to you well before the end of the year, because we need to meet again to talk about, you know, what it might look like in 2021 and see if we're together. So I'm thinking it'll be in late October or November, because I'm headed into budget season and training our AmeriCorps volunteers. So I've got an intense couple of weeks. So does that sound like a reasonable next step? And then based on specific things I come up with, Zach, I might call you. I might call you to talk about, you know, like a way to work with Terry, or I might call you to talk about all right, how are we really going to engage with our statewide partners in raising the visibility of this program in that way. So I could see calling on individuals. Not that I want to not have it be this collaborative process, but I'm trying to move the body of work forward. You guys are all full plate people. So that's just a proposal to move it forward. So I guess I'd like to know if there are any concerns with massaging the work from today to give you something to respond to. Deb.
I just have one comment. I understand we were supposed to be getting monthly reports from Terry.
Yeah,
I think I've had one for maybe the last 6 months. I don't get monthly reports. Okay. And when you had the listing up there that showed how well August was, yep. Even though Brunswick was fairly high up on the chain, there wasn't a single Brunswick restaurant or shop down below that was contacted. So
well, keep in mind, okay, and keep in mind, I was blowing those up to make them fit on the PowerPoint, and the list went a lot further down.
Okay.
So Brunswick probably was there if I had to guess. As far as the monthly reports, I have been getting them, and I know they've been posted in the private Facebook group, but that's like a communication piece. You should certainly be getting them. We will make sure that all of you get them.
Thank you.
I don't know anything about the Facebook group.
I think you're in it, but I'll check.
Okay.
It's like a private Facebook group for the 10 of you. And Christina was the one who said, I don't want to see information that way. I think, Christina, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. She said, I still just want to receive, emails, not the Facebook group. And that's fine. So we will look same. Yeah. And so everybody, he was trying to put it out multiple ways so that those that could grab it one way, but let me find that out. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Dave.
That all sounds wonderful. My only concern is around the timing. If we were going to try and push in the e-commerce bucket,
yep.
I'm worried that we'll miss a window where we could actually have an impact in our communities. And so I guess I'm asking for permission to reach out separately to everybody on this call. And I'm happy to do most of the legwork, but I also understand you just said you have a bunch on your plate, and this is one of those things. And this is really, really critical to some of the other things that I think will be important in our communities. If I could take the lead on that and reach out to everybody, is that okay with everybody? I'm looking for permission to move that ball forward a little bit faster.
Absolutely. I know you've started the research and the conversations, especially with Bowie Local, and I'm fine with you taking the lead on that body of work, if you will. It's not my area of expertise. So please, by all means. And I guess if you can keep me in the loop, then I would love to be able to kind of follow along. And it seems like you got a collective thumbs up. Was there anybody who was not comfortable with Dave doing that on behalf of the project? Okay, great. Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to miss opportunities. I am not trying to slow things down, but I'm also trying to make sure that like we address the stuff on the table today. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I will, to your original question, I think the process makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you outlining what the process is going to be and the timeline. And to me, that makes a lot of sense as you've outlined it. And I agree with Dave. Go ahead and do the research that needs to be done and then let us know.
Thank you. Any other closing comments?
So Anne, you mentioned maybe the end of October.
Yeah.
Circling back around, do you envision something like this again?
Yes.
A form like this? Okay.
Yes, I do. But with something, I think, provided in writing ahead of time, just so we can all come and make the meeting the most efficient. Yes.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'll be in touch with specific, you know, some of you specifically on some of the issues.
And it's really nice to see everybody. I miss being in person.
I know. It's weird. It's like the Main Street family that wasn't. Okay, so that is it for today. And your new reporting forms are coming in the mail in the next 24 hours. If anybody cares, Zach, you should really care.
In the mail?
No, email.
No.
Sorry.
You went back to the country.
Well, I'm trying to support the post office. No, just through email. Through email. Yeah, that kind of mail.
Are you talking about the quarterly reports?
I am. You've already done your first two, but there's a new form with less data to collect.
Oh.
Christina will love it. I think it's good. But I have one correction I noticed when I was about to send today. So it's in a system called LGL. The formatting looks good. Yeah, so it's coming.
Is that expected to change for 2020? So the last two quarters will be in the new format, or is this for 2021?
Yeah, exactly. Oh. It's for those that haven't done the first two quarters, they can use the new form. And those that have, like you, Amanda, can just use it for the second two. It's two reporting periods, two of 6 months.
All right.
Is anybody on the call like an LGL forms? Like
we have lots of expertise at MDF on LGL.
On the forms specifically?
Yes.
Okay. Who can I reach out to?
Joanna.
Okay. All right. I'm struggling.
Yeah. Ask Joanna. Okay.
Oh,
all right. I'm going to let you guys go. Reach out to me if you have anything specific or something that you're more comfortable talking one-on-one with me about. And I am sorry we lost Delilah, but I will update her and we will come up with a new plan for this project. And in general, last question, are you feeling optimistic that we can make this work in a good way? Are still people on the fence? Amanda, Deb, thumb this?
I mean, I just don't feel like I have a choice, so I'm just gonna go forward with positivity. So, like I'm not like
we're gonna try to convince you, but of course you have a choice. So okay.
Right. I think in my case, and we need to have a conversation and work with Terry more closely. My staff person said she would be willing to upload all of our information if that works. But I know Terry has to have control over it. I get that, but we just need to establish better lines of communication with the.
Yep, and I'm going to work with you on that, Deb, specifically.
Yeah. And I will send a check to Delilah. I didn't expect her to pay for me.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thanks, you guys. Have a good Friday. Zach, good luck with baby Winston.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye-bye.